Hi everyone. So we are group 4 from Seneca College, and we will be presenting artificial intelligence from ethics to law. So we have 5 members in the group, myself, Nupur, Messi, Justice, and Rahul. So we will start from the agenda. So in the agenda, we have introductions to AI from ethics to law, benefits of regulating AI, drawbacks of AI from ethics to law, journal analysis, and then statistical and judicial analysis. From the introduction point of view, to start with, artificial intelligence is a broad concept which can take the form of anything from simply mechanical devices, which hardly qualify as intelligent, to the tools used to build extremely intelligent systems. AI machines that can see, hear, and understand, as well as behave in ways that resemble or even surpass human performance, has been made possible by advances in science and technology. However, it has also become a great deal of focus in a wide-ranging debate due to the ethical and legal concerns raised by AI. In all contexts and fields, but particularly in those with high level of complexity like AI, both of these social behaviors factors are essential. Law cannot be disregarded, nor it should be confused with ethics. So we'll start first with the ethical purpose for AI. Common ethical purpose for AI states that humans should be held accountable for AI's behavior and in charge of it. AI should respect fundamental human rights, such as equality, non-discrimination, and dignity. It should respect others' privacy, to be fair, secure, accountable, socially responsible, and compliant with rules and regulations at the same time. Also, AI has to be technically sound and reliable. Even with the best of the intentions, technological incompetence can result in unintended harm. In all ethical proposals, the thorough effort reveals a strong interest in the ethical implications of AI. Compliance with ethical standards is optional. However, adherence to legal requirements is not optional, rather it is required. Next is legal perspective for AI. Nicolas Petit discussed 2 prominent approaches in his study. First is legal system, which entails creating a list of legal areas or concerns that robots and AIs have, such as liability, privacy, and cybersecurity. Second is the technology, where goal is to imagine legal concerns for each kind of technological application like driverless cars, social robots, exoskeletons, etc. from the bottom up. From legal point of view, new international rules should be created since the advancement of AI is a global phenomenon with global social and economic implications. Along with intellectual property or responsibility, the concern is the acknowledgement of AI having legal personality. The issue of criminal responsibility for actions carried out by AI systems is the most fascinating one. So we have a few challenges while regulating the AI from ethical and legal point of view. There have been a threat of jobs losses due to AI since the robots are coming into the picture. We have a requirement to define AI employment rights or obligations as well. Right to leave or social security contribution is one of the another challenges. These are harder to govern problems, which calls for the need to consider the technological, ethical, and legislation implications of AI. I will hand over next to Nupur, who will discuss the benefits of AI from AI point of view.
Thank you, Deepika. So in this part, we'll discuss the benefits of regulating artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence technology will undoubtedly lead to new hazards with unpredictable outcome if it is used to replace the human decision making. Concerns over AI's ethical and legal implications are becoming more prevalent in the wide-ranging discussion surrounding it. Numerous of academic researchers have been conducted on the ethical and legal implications of AI. AI and its potential benefits for humanity are now subjects of several discussions. Some have cautioned that the AI may be even riskier than the nuclear power, However, it appears impossible and undesirable to halt the advancement of AI in uses. As a result, it mandates regulation of AI research and its applications. Here are some benefits of regulating the artificial intelligence. First one is the protect public fundamental rights. It is significant that the usage of AI has on multiple occasions been deemed to violate the people's right based on the ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation. It is predicted that the regulation of AI would provide justice and reason for the development of technology aimed at enhancing the human right. Regulation may, for instance, shield the victims from the criminal justice by relying on a machine intelligence for punishment. And if we regulate it, it will help in preventing the denial of defendants' basic rights due to poor machine judgment. Next, we move on to the use of technology without manipulation or bias. Organizations and governments are using AI to make decisions that might significantly affect how we live. For instance, algorithms that measure academic success may be a catastrophic. In UK, the Secretary of State for Education utilized an algorithm to calculate each student's final test mark. As a result, over 40% of students earned worse grades than that those their professors had previously assigned. Furthermore, the algorithm favored kids in the private school over those in public schools, in addition to be erroneous. The business sector has also shown the limitation of AI. With regulating law, corporations have more motivation to invest in safety measures and ensure the integrity and objectivity of their data, would decrease the likelihood that system would be incorrect and prejudiced. Next, we move on the next benefit, which is the transparency of the products for the users. By regulating AI, information on the products will be made available to the general public. Companies must give a thorough explanation of AI in the questions. This contains details about the data it utilizes, how it was created, and what it is used for, and where it is utilized. It is crucial that the people who are exposed to AI are told about it. As it's in the case, it's the recruiting algorithm. Systems that have the potential to significantly affect the people's lives should be given a greater examination and be included in a database that is open to public and which is done by regulating the law. Next, we move on to the next, that is the AI security. Legally regulating AI makes sure that the AI security is built into the future AI development projects. This implies that any new AI, regardless matter how simple or complicated it is, will go through a development process that will inevitably center on reducing the non-compliance and the failure chances. Any international organization or government entity attempting to legislate the regulation of artificial intelligence should engage with authority in the fields of law and justice. And what happened after this? This aids in removing any political or personal agenda, prejudice, or misunderstanding from the rules governing AI research and use. And the last one is protecting the data privacy. Large data sets have a bigger privacy if they are compromised. Just produce findings that are more accurate and representative. AI can quickly even analyze the personal data. Researchers have shown that even with the coarse data sets, there is a little anonymity leading up to the 95% of re-identification, and which may run the danger of quickly recognizing having your data compromised. Hence, regulating AI ensures that the data privacy can't be breached and misused by the hackers. So I next hand over to Messi for the drawbacks part.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the drawbacks of the AI in this part. Notably, although there has been extensive research on and debate in most of the countries and in international scene, many working on or somehow involved with AI fields are seriously concerned about its potential negative impacts. And related debates have been going on since the advent of AI. This discourse entails many of AI's aspects, two of which are ethical and legal issues. In the following parts, some of the intervened drawbacks that AI has will be introduced and explained using a few examples. The first one is bias and discrimination. Algorithm bias caused by bad data, deliberate manipulation of data. So input data can be intentionally manipulated favoring a special group or disturbing another one, leading to increased inequality and disparity. The example can be the input criteria for mortgage stress test, that if the bank authorities put the biased input data as the algorithm, it can draw a distinction between different people and ethnicities and others. The second one is the bias or discrimination. The second one is the socioeconomic inequality. Another disadvantage of application of AI is potential impacts on socioeconomic inequalities. The example can be the AI software applications were developed in global north during the COVID era based on their data, based on the data that were gathered in the global north, and only work for those countries, being ineffective in global south countries, in the underdeveloped countries. Another one would be the unclear legal liabilities and responsibility. The responsibility and liability when it comes to using AI-based services such as autonomous cars, this is still unclear who should be held responsible and liable in events leading to monetary and life losses. When an autonomous driving car hits a person and or object, incurring damages. This is the example in which we can see that this is still unclear. And next one would be the weapon atomization or autonomous target recognition. One of the most sensitive areas on which much research has been done is the application of AI. In military, utmost importance this is, since it deals with weapons which can pose serious risk on the life of civilian people. The example is the target selection in US military. Now I will hand over to my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Messi. So now that we saw the basics of AI law and ethics, we'll see how we can do an analysis on AI. Now, there are two different ways to look at it. One is the legalistic approach and the other is the technological approach. The legalistic approach deals with the different legal concepts like privacy, liability, cybersecurity, basically deals with the legal system. Now, the technological approach, it deals with the technological applications like the autonomous cars, driverless cars, or the bots, robots, or anything which deals with the artificial intelligence systems. Because AI is a more technological concept and technology is involved, we need to look into international law for this. Again, because it is a more universal and global domain. Now, international law can be either formalist or it can be a non-formalist. Now, the formalist approach deals with a set of rules, which are a set of structured principles. But the non-formalist approach, it deals with a law in the form of not just principles, it deals with more than just a principle. It deals with how the society deals with law. Now, moving on to the next slide, we can see that there are a few characteristics which concern law and ethics with regards to AI. The first is that there is no clear political and social consciousness about the scope and life of AI. Then because AI is very complex and it is very difficult to comprehend the complexity involved in AI. Again, because it is complex, it has not been extensively used in the legal and ethical cases. It has not been used in objective situations. All this is because AI is a more novel and complex. It has a complex reality involved in it. Now, moving on. Yeah, so like we said, the international laws should be applicable to AI and its applications. But there are a lot of challenges which come along with this. The first is that it mostly deals with international relationships. That is, the international law, it deals with relationships between countries, and getting consensus between the different nations is difficult because there are different political, social, and economic statuses which differentiate the different countries. But there have been very recent developments, like in 2018 and 2019, where the European Union and the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, so they have come up with a set of principles and recommendations which are adopted by the different nations. Now, moving on to the next slide. So the current legal framework which exists it tries to say that the rules which are applicable to humans and the normal society will be applicable to AI as well, the AI as well as the AI systems. That is, the laws are treated as analogous to the AI systems. Another concept is that whoever are the stakeholders who get benefits from the AI systems will be liable for the consequences of AI. So, but there are still challenges which exist, which is because there is no basic social and economic consensus between countries, and there is no interdisciplinary analysis which is done on the different applications of AI. So that is basically the general analysis. So moving on to the statistical and judicial, Rahul will take over.
Thank you, Justice. Here we will be talking about the conceptual problem while considering the ethics and the law. Since the scientific community and the many institutions all understand and comprehend the significance of ethical considerations in AI, the range of ideas made in respect by public or commercial entities, however, are challenging to comprehend and frequently difficult to understand. The ethical discussion has two primary issues. The first one is a conceptual issue, which we'll be talking in detail over here. And another one is a functional issue, which we'll be talking later in the slides. It is well known that the adherence to ethical standards can be optional. The industrialized nations where AI is being developed have dominated the ethical conversation with the AI. Many other countries lack the level of economic and technological development necessary to participate in this topic. The following is a list of key points in the conceptual perspective. A product may be produced from a practical, scientific, financial, or political point of view. That is very different from the way what is produced from a social, philosophical, or ideological point of view. The discussion differs significantly depending on whether the suggestions are made by a state, international organization, or non-institutional frameworks. It is critical to prevent a discussion that is only open to the nations that have reached a height in the scientific and technical advancement demanded by AI. Next slide, please. Here we'll be talking about the functional problem in implementing the ethics in AI. Ethics and law are closely related to one another in a complicated way. But there are two major issues with common combination of ethical and legal ideas of scenario of artificial intelligence. First of all, it demonstrates an astounding knowledge of both fields. Second, as if they were equal or interchangeable, the confusion is used to support the necessity of ethical standards and to exclude the legal laws, which is not possible. So a legal need and ethical concept do in fact differ significantly. Adherence to the law is required. Second, the legal standards can be universal and consistent because in this case, the international law, they result in agreement between states, while in domestic law, they do so as a result of valid legislative process. Third, legal regulation takes into an account and tackles the political, social, and economic elements of AI, which are unfortunately sometimes more important than the ethical considerations. Next is the legislative and judicial guarantees exist to ensure that the regulations be followed. In the domestic law is not AI's first preference because of the following reasons. Domestic law lacks the competence to be properly and successfully implemented outside of the state's border, as each state or country has different rules and regulations associated with each. Each domestic legal system has a process for incorporating or adopting international law into domestic law while still acknowledging the supremacy of domestic law. Next, different disciplines of domestic law each have their own technique, information, and procedures. Can you please move to the next slide, please? These are the references which from which we have referred oral documents and made our slides. Thank you so much.